Hello, and welcome back to the RMC Experience. I know you've been on the edge of your seat waiting for us to return.
I'm Dan Hutchinson.
I'm Rachael Siegel.
And we're teachers here at RMC. I teach woodwinds, brass, voice, and piano.
I teach woodwinds. I have taught other things. I've taught piano, and that's it here at RMC. But I've taught other things in my past life.
So the purpose of this podcast is to let you in on a little bit of the insight of the process of being teachers, specifically teachers here at RMC. Rachael and I have a combined 20 years of teaching experience on various instruments and with students from ages 8 to 88, from 6 to 66.
7 to 77?
Thank you. I was hoping you would do another number.
Oh. You paused and I was like, I think this is my moment.
It was. I was throwing it to you.
Yeah. And as well as teaching music, we also play music professionally. I play in some community groups. I've played in some high school pits around the area. Both community bands and orchestras, chamber groups.
I'm more of a rock and wedding band person. I also sing in a barbershop quartet. I know. How cool is that? And throughout the years, we've picked up various tips, tricks, techniques to more efficiently teach and more effectively teach our students to eventually do what we're lucky enough to get to do every day.
Yeah. So today we are going to discuss how to make yourself or your child, depending on who's watching this, practice. Because practicing, we're going to be real, it's not the most fun. Sometimes it can be. Sometimes it can be a blast, depending on what you're playing. But your scales, your arpeggios, just the nitty-gritty that really makes up all of the fun stuff that you get to play might not be the most fun thing to sit down and practice.
In fact, it can seem really daunting. The fact that you hear about it takes 1,000 hours to get to be a professional or to get to be good at anything. You see that number and you're like, do I even want to start?
Have I even lived that long?
In some cases, no. 1,000 hours?
I don't know.
That's less than a year, right?
Is it?
Is it 2 years?
Did it show how bad at math we both are?
Yeah, we're musicians. It's okay. But to even get yourself started, and once you start, what do? What should I start with? Should I do scales? Should I play this music that I'm working on? So the purpose of tonight's episode is to talk about exactly how we can get there. How do we get ourselves to our instrument? How do we get ourselves to start practicing? But before we dive too deep into the topic, as always, we have plenty of things going on here at RMC. We have some recitals coming up. We have some various programs going on, and here to talk a little bit about that is our own Liz Robbins.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for inviting me on the podcast.
Thanks for being here.
If I invited myself, I apologize. But I did want to talk about some of the goings-on at RMC just to let everyone know about what's going on. So we actually have a couple of events coming up that are really exciting and that everyone can come out to either support live or via live stream. So coming up on March 5th, we have the Shine a Light concert, which is a concert where families come together to perform in the name of a charity or cause that they wish to raise money or awareness for. So the event is going to be on March 5th. It's a Saturday. We have 3 awesome packed shows. We have a show at 11. We have a second show at 1 p.m. and then we have another show at 2:30. So in each show, we have solo performers, and we also have some of our awesome group programs performing. We have the RMC Drumline, the RMC Choir, and the newest group, the Ukulele Strummers. We also have 5 of our awesome rock shops that are also going to be performing. So if you would like, come on out. It's going to be at the Union County Performing Arts Center. If you can't come out live, you can tune into the live stream, which is on our website. If you would like to donate to one of the charities or causes, you will be able to find that information on the website and at the live stream. After Shine a Light, we have 2 more performances coming up. Our rock shops are going to be taking the stage at the Stone Pony on April 3rd, which is going to be an incredible show. So we'll have more information coming out about that, about timing, and how you can get a ticket to come out. It's going to be epic. Last month, actually, the rock shops took the stage at the House of Independence, and they killed it. It was so awesome. And in 2 months, they are working up brand new sets to perform for you guys. So it's going to be an incredible afternoon of music. And then after that, we have RMC Fest, which is Saturday, June 4th. And that is going to be an all-day music festival. Yes, RMC puts on its own music festival. There will be music. There will be games. There will be food. It's going to be an awesome packed day, so we hope that you can come out to any of these next coming events. If you'd like more information, you can find it on our website, or you can always email rmcnews@rmcstudios.com. So outside of events, we do also have our summer camps that just went out last week. So if you're looking to be in a rock shop this summer, if you want to learn how to write your own songs and then walk out with a professionally recorded song, if you want to learn how to play guitar or ukulele, or join Dan and sing in the a cappella boot camp that I hadn't told him that he was doing yet, then you should visit our website at www.rmcstudios.com/summercamps. You can also find it on our homepage. All right, so that's my time, you guys. Thank you so much for inviting me on, and I'll let you guys take it from here.
Thank you so much for joining us. That is super exciting. I'm really pumped to see the RMC kids take the stage at the Stone Pony.
Yeah, I had no idea that was happening, and I'm sure if you watched my face during that, I was like, oh, wow, I want to perform at the Stone Pony.
It's amazing. I mean, having done it a number of times, it is one of my absolute favorite venues to play. And for a lot of these students, it's going to be their first time getting to play in that legendary venue.
Is it too late to create my own rock shop?
We might be able to.
We'll duo there.
We'll do a duo. Yeah, we'll open for them.
Oh, we would make a good opener.
Yeah,
we'd be
a great opening act. I love it.
Well, speaking of opening, we'd have to practice. So let's talk about practicing.
So, the first thing. I'm going to do that again. I'm going to take that back.
And I was going to say, too, don't forget to mention, speaking to parents, too, it's really hard to get your kid to practice sometimes, right? How to keep it fun and keep it light. Remember, just kind of add that into what you guys are doing, too.
Absolutely. I think we should address the musicians first and then say parents.
Okay.
So let's try that again. Let's get into the zone. Here we go. So first and foremost, musicians, the most difficult thing to do is to actually get yourself to the instrument. If you're a vocalist, you don't really have as much of an excuse, to be fair. But the first thing is making sure that you have access to your instrument. I think what I tell all of my students and what I mention to all of my students' parents is that the best investment to make in equipment is obviously in the instrument itself, but the second best investment is a stand for that instrument.
Yeah. Every instrument has its own sized stand that would go woodwind-wise or brass-wise. It goes in the bell, but guitars have stands. I'm sure everyone has seen a guitar stand more often than a peg for a clarinet, but it just holds the instrument up. And it's not just if you're playing multiple instruments at once. It's good if you need a break. You put it down, you come back to it. Or it's just always out. During the pandemic, I left all of my instruments out because I was playing them all the time. And it's easier when you get back and you're like, oh, I can just pick this up instead of having to put 1,000 pieces together, soak your reed, put the mouthpiece on. And that's a hassle. It's a chore.
Yeah. When I was in school, my biggest excuse, because I was one of those people that made excuses all the time, of why, I can't practice right now.
I was going to start at 4 p.m., but it's 4:05, so now I got to wait till 4:30.
Bummer. You know what? I totally practice, but there's so much effort in just putting it together, taking it out. You know what? I'm just going to sit here and watch television, eating my Doritos and not touch the instrument because I have to go and get it. But if the instrument is just staring you in the face, I wouldn't say it's like guilting you, but it's definitely sitting over there like, play me.
They say out of sight, out of mind, but really in sight, in your mind.
Exactly right.
Which doesn't sound as good, but it's true. If it's right there, you're more likely to play it. How many times in college and grad school was I practicing the instrument I was supposed to be practicing, but a piano was right there, and I was like, this is more fun. It's right there. So you want to play it. You just see it, and you remember that you like it.
Yeah. I mean, it's almost like easy access makes for easy practice. It sounded better in my head.
Most things do.
So we've talked about being able to access the instrument. Now, the enemy of all musicians and all practicers, is that a thing? Is it practicers a term?
I don't think so.
Practicants?
People that practice.
People that practice. The enemy is time.
It's not on your side.
If you have a busy schedule, as many musicians and many people in general have these days, it might be difficult to set aside the time.
Especially these kids who are doing 5,000 sports and activities.
Oh my goodness. It's a good thing that I never played any sport.
Neither did I, as you can tell. It's good to just decide on a time. You could make it the same time every day if it's easier for you, but I know sometimes sports schedules and school and dinner and your parents' schedule and your siblings' schedules don't always line up. But what I do is I'll plan it out in a planner, and you don't have to be as like type A as me, but I set out a time every day or the days I want to practice, and I say I'm going to do it this time, I'm going to do it this time, so that you have the time. You have to make time. Everyone always says that, and when you grow up and become an adult, people will continually say that. But it's true. You have to decide on the times that you want to do it. So you're like, okay, when I come home, instead of watching that half-hour TV, I'm going to bring out my instrument, play some scales.
A lot of people, when I was growing up, would say, pick a show that you like or that you're familiar with, and when that show starts, start practicing. And when that show is over, like leave it on in the background. And when that show is over, then you're done practicing, and you can like reward yourself with some time. And we'll talk a little bit more about like a reward system later on. But I always found that if I picked a show that I knew or was familiar with, as soon as it started, even if it was muted in the corner, I would turn and watch.
I'm not like that. I'm the opposite, actually. I have gotten to a point in my life where just the silence, even though I'm practicing, that's not silent, but the silence behind the practicing is so distracting that I need a show that I have watched 1,000 times on in the background, and I can just have it on, because I was the kid that watched TV when I did my homework. So it just kind of is a comfort and kind of just helps me focus. So I'll just put on like Gilmore Girls or Grey's Anatomy and just play. And by the time you know it, 3 episodes have passed and you've practiced for an hour and a half.
And I mean, I guess that might also be a benefit that we had, where shows, nowadays we have the streaming services and everything where you can pick shows and kind of start at any time. When we had like regular TV, regular cable, shows would always come on at the same time. So you would automatically have a time frame to practice in.
It's time for SpongeBob and clarinet.
SpongeBob and clarinet. Well, I guess we can call it Squidward and clarinet at that point. But
you're right.
So while we have mention of it there, let's talk a little bit about. I know it's a little further down.
And we don't have to go in order.
No, but let's talk about rewarding ourselves for practicing. We live in a time where instant gratification is heavily desired. So if you set a reward for yourself for practicing, if you bargain with yourself,
it could be a time reward. Like if I practice for a half hour, I can watch a half hour of TV. Actually, I did that with my clarinet. Both of these stories are going to be with clarinet students. My one clarinet student, she is now in 6th grade, but last year I was like, listen, you love iCarly. You practice for a half hour, then you watch iCarly. And she was like, I'm practicing every day. I was like, keep it up. She was like, that's a great method. And then my other kid, she's very food motivated. At the end of her lesson, she would always give me candy to the point where one time she got an M&M stuck in her clarinet, which she doesn't like to talk about, but I will talk about it at her wedding.
That is certainly a story for one of our other podcasts,
yeah,
for sure.
But she's very food motivated. So you're like, okay, if I do this 5 times without messing up, I can have a piece of chocolate. Something like that.
And then proceed to, rinse beforehand. You don't want chocolate in your wind instrument there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would absolutely, when I was practicing, I would set aside some time for myself for after practice. So when I was practicing for an hour, I really was practicing for 50 minutes and scheduling that 50 minutes for myself so that the last 10 minutes I could do something that I really enjoyed, whether it be playing a game for like 10 minutes or the hour and 10 minutes after the lesson. I would usually take advantage of my rewards, but
if you have the time, you have the time.
Yeah, but
speaking of that too, Dan said he allotted an hour to practice. It's not really about how much time you allot to practice if you're not using your time correctly. So
I like that. I'm sorry. I was responding like it was
like,
ooh.
Did you have something else to say about it?
No, I was just like, ooh, that's great.
So you could sometimes I'll allot myself an hour, but I'll be so distracted that I get nothing done. So yeah, I'm playing my instrument, which has its own benefits, but if I'm wasting the time because I'm not actually fulfilling a practice.
And that's where we are going to shamelessly plug our next episode. So tune in next time for sure when we talk about how to practice. Continuing on though, how do we get to practice?
I was like, are we at the half hour already?
Oh no.
How to practice. Because a lot of times most kids don't know how. And I've actually seen a lot of adults in music school that don't know how. And I run a lot of my lessons as a practice session, which I know you're not supposed to do, but how else are kids going to learn how to practice? In school, a lot of the times they're just, they're working towards the test, just rehearsing, and teachers might talk about it in their private lessons, but not all schools have pull-out lessons, and when you're talking to a huge group and you have a concert to put on, a lot of times it's something that kind of gets brushed under the rug. It's just like, please practice, but I'm not going to tell you how. So I'll do a lot of things that I do in my practice sessions when I'm like by myself with my students, like repetition and
a drawer,
cutting, or like what is the word? When you just you take a section and you just play the section and then you put it back in. But there was a word I wanted to use, but I can't remember what it was. Isolating, yeah. When you isolate a section and then you put it back in, because it's one thing to play it over and over and over again by itself, but going into it and coming out of it also can be challenges.
And to build on a little bit on that hour thing that you mentioned, with practicing properly and allotting yourself an hour, I think a lot of what the intimidating thing is, you have a large span of time, like an hour, and like if you're just starting out practicing and you say, I'm going to practice for an hour every day, you get like 15 minutes in and you go, I promised what?
Yeah. I haven't, shame on me, but I haven't had the mental headspace to practice recently. I just haven't felt like it. And I was like, you know what? An hour's too much. I usually practice each instrument at least an hour. And I was like, well, I'm going to do a half hour. Just get back into it. Just have the instrument out. Just do something very specific and worth my time. And then eventually it'll grow into more time.
Yeah. Parents, if your students are just starting out on their instruments, 10, 15 minutes a day to start out.
I always say 15 minutes to parents.
15?
I have a friend who says they should practice as long as their lesson, but I'm like, a half hour can be just as daunting as an hour.
Oh, absolutely.
So just play your instrument, but don't just go through things. Like actually work on the stuff that you're having trouble with. Which, by the way, also parents and students, you got to practice the stuff that's hard. Well, the parents don't have to practice, but the parents should encourage the practicing. Because the kids, and I'm the same way, and I'm sure Dan's the same way, and Liz, and every teacher here at RMC, we were talking about instant gratification. You want to play the stuff that's easy, but you're never going to get better or be able to play the hard stuff if you don't practice it. And it might be daunting, but take it slow. isolate, really workshop that hard stuff, because eventually you'll get it, and I promise that. I promise every RMC student that. You are going to get the hard stuff. Don't be afraid.
And I mean, I think as far as the placement of that, if you tell yourself that I'm going to do the hard stuff maybe in the middle of the lesson, but first, let me play some stuff that I really enjoy. It makes it, you kind of transition into it gradually rather than just going and saying, all right, I'm going to start practicing Rachmaninoff 2.
Yeah. And ending with something that's easy, because then you get that gratification. Like, you worked hard, and now you're playing something that you know you can do well. There's something else I wanted to say. I don't know anymore.
Take a breath.
It's not going to come to me. If it
We'll
comes
fix
to me,
it in post.
Yeah, I know. If it comes to me, I'll say it, but I don't remember what it was. Because you were saying something about practicing in the session. Oh, I wanted to talk about how to start the practice, because we talked about doing something in the middle, and I wanted to talk about how you could start. I always start like with warm-ups. You would never run a marathon without warming up your body. So you shouldn't play your instrument without warming up your body or your instrument. The instrument could break, you could injure yourself. We don't really, it's being talked about more, but for a long time we didn't really talk about playing related injuries except for vocalists who had vocal injuries. But instrumentalists can get injured too. Your body, if it's not warmed up properly or you're not sitting correctly, can be ruined. So warming up your body, warming up your instrument are very key when starting out.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's say you've gotten yourself to practice, or you've gotten your child to practice. They're there. They're in the middle of playing and everything. What about tomorrow? You've made it happen once. How do we make it happen again? Well, we can use a bunch of these different techniques that we've talked about. Techniques, yes. Well, they're also sort of technically sneaky. If you incorporate these right, they're tech sneaks.
We're tech sneaking you.
They say that it takes about 3 weeks to form a habit. So if you manage to use some of these techniques for 3 weeks in a row, then there doesn't really have to be much of a debate on, oh, should I practice, or how am I going to get you to practice. A lot of times it will start to just happen naturally, and it can eventually also happen without any sort of thought the further into the habit you get. Practice should be a habit. It shouldn't be something that's like, oh, I should practice. It's just, oh, practice time. Here we go.
It's like doing your homework. You come home, you do your homework, you have to do it. And which, if you haven't thought about it, doing your homework is practicing. It's a form of practicing. You're practicing your math equations. You're practicing your reading. You're learning about history. It's a form of practice. Same if you're in a sports team. I'm sure you don't just practice when you're at sports. You can tell we don't sport. When you're just at practice, I was going to say sporting rehearsal, but you practice at home. You play a little basketball with friends. You shoot the balls around. You hit a tennis racket. I don't know what I'm talking about. But I do know you have to practice those things. Anything worth doing is going to take a little work and a little practice. And they said Rome was not built in a day.
Yeah. To continue on to the sports, to continue on with this sports analogy
that we know just so well,
which is just probably a dangerous thing to do. Your first day out playing football, you're not stepping out with the New York Giants.
No.
Your first day out playing football, you're
on flag football. You're not even playing tackle.
Exactly. You're playing flag football with some friends, or even just tossing the ball back and forth. And it's the exact same thing with music. When you're stepping out for the first time to play your instrument, for the first time to practice your instrument, you're not getting up with Eddie Van Halen or people of that ilk. You're not getting up with the top people. You're starting out and you're seeing all of these people. Sure, you're watching them, you're observing them, you're seeing what made them so great, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, wow, how do I get to that point?
And it's something that you should always continue to remind yourself. these encouraging yourself that it's okay to not be at that level, that no two people are the same, and that, yeah, you might not be able to get it today, but tomorrow's a new day, and you just got to keep trying. Because I've seen students that can't, or get so frustrated. I have so many students that just like the clarinet, playing over the break, that's hard. Getting sound out of the flute, that's hard. I've had students that can't do it immediately, and they're like, I'll never be able to do it. This is hard. I don't like it. And sometimes you got to just enjoy the pain of not being able to get it, because life's all about the journey and not the destination. And it's for both the student, the musician themselves, and the parents. It's just an encouraging situation. And I encourage my students all the time. I'm like, listen, you'll get it. If I didn't think you could do this at some point, I wouldn't give it to you.
Yeah. I like that tomorrow reference you use. Like there's always tomorrow to work on it. Because to kind of hitch on that, the only difference between a student who's starting out in school, or starting out here at the RMC, or just starting out on their own on an instrument, or starting out as a vocalist, the only difference between these students and the people that they're seeing on television and seeing on YouTube and who are doing all of these incredible musical things, the only difference is they've had a number more of tomorrows. They've had more tomorrows to work with, and they were in the exact same place when they were starting out. I'm sure they've all had motivational issues. I'm sure they've all had trouble with how to practice. They've all had trouble and they've all wondered, it's like, well, how am I ever going to get to the point of the people that came before them? And it's all just a matter of taking a breath and going, they've just had more time than me. If I start working now, by the time I'm where they are, by the time I'm their age, by the time I'm doing what they're doing, I could be as good as them. I could be better. If I set that motivation now and think that the only difference is time, then the effort becomes less strenuous. At least when I was practicing, that's what I would think. It's like, all right, yeah, that guy's doing these crazy things that I could never even imagine doing right now. But they've been around longer. They've been doing it for longer. They were at my level at one point going, how am I ever going to do that?
Yeah. And it's inspiring too to see that. I noticed that I am usually the most inspired to practice my instrument after seeing someone who's way better than me play their instrument, going to a concert, seeing your favorite band. My favorite bands, well, Bleachers has saxophone players, but like AJR has a trumpet player and a bunch of guitar players and like keyboards and stuff. Like the instruments I play aren't in a lot of rock groups and bands I like, but even still seeing them play, I'm like, wow, they're on a big stage playing music, sharing their passion, which is also my passion, with all these people, and that's something I want to do. I want to go take my instrument out right now.
That is one I don't think we actually listed or planned out to talk about. But when you're hurting for motivation, go online, go to a concert, look up musicians who have been doing it for that much longer, see what they can do, because you don't just have the opportunity to compare yourself, you have the opportunity to use that as motivation
and a learning tool too, especially if if they're playing the instrument that you play.
Absolutely. Hold on one second, we'll fix that in post. We'll get I'm getting a pause. I'm just checking all of these. Keep instrument out, make time. Know that you don't need all your practicing at once. Make it a habit. Set realistic. We did that.
And we didn't talk about goals.
I think having specific goals is more towards the how to practice. Right? Okay. Reward yourself for practicing.
Oh, find a friend. Duets.
Yes.
So I would say have this be your last tip, and then move over into the outro, and then we'll be over 30 minutes, but it's like that's a decent.
But like closer. Mm-hmm. Awesome. Do you want to do the finding a friend one, or do you want to save that for how to practice?
Well, I don't think that's how to practice. I think that's just something that motivates me too.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent.
Play. All right. One of my favorite things to do also, besides seeing live music to inspire me to play my instrument, is playing duets with a friend. because duets are one of my favorite musical genre, not a genre, but like styles. You're playing with another person who has their own sets of strengths that you can feed off of, especially if you're playing someone better than you. You're working on intonation, you're working on playing with a person, and it's also just fun, especially if you're playing with a really close friend. And like me and my friend, whenever we play duets, we always end up laughing because something will go wrong. We'll make a mistake. He'll go too fast and I'll be like, ah, and fly, or something will happen. And we're like, don't stop unless there's a train wreck. And we love that. And that also pushes you to play harder stuff. And just like, it's just a fun time. So find a friend, play a duet with them. If your friend is in band with you, I'm sure there's easy duets out there. They're online. But we could give you, resources if you want one, and just play with somebody. And no, you're not technically practicing, but you're still playing your instrument. You're still getting something. It's still beneficial somehow.
Every bit of time spent with your instrument, every bit of time spent playing music, performing music, is time put towards it and time for improvement. It's great to have somebody there with you also to sort of keep you accountable. I always found that if there was somebody that I was supposed to sort of keep up with, somebody that if we're both working on the same assignments, if we're working on duets, for example, and we have that week between the times that we meet, I was always, there's a little bit of a guilt factor, there's a little bit of an anxiety factor here where it's like, what if I'm not keeping up? I have to make sure that I'm either playing equal or better than the other person, and there's like a friendly sense of competition, but also sort of a sense of accountability, a sense of now somebody's relying on me to get this right and to have this prepared for the next time we get together.
It's like having a gym buddy, same kind of concept.
I need one of those.
Me too.
So this has been a little glimpse into some of the techniques that we use that we found really help us to get motivated to practice. If you have any suggestions, anything that perhaps has worked for you, feel free to reach out to us at podcast@rmcstudios.com.
.com. Tune in next month where we talk about how to practice. So you finally opened your instrument, you took it out, you have the motivation to do it, but what do I even do? We will cover that next month.
Once again, for the RMC Experience, I'm Daniel Hutchinson.
I'm Rachael Siegel.
We'll see you next time. Hey, RMC family. Have a topic that you'd like the two of us to discuss on air? Have a burning question about music or practicing or performing you just really want to know the answer to? Feel free to reach out in the comments below or at our email, podcast@rmcstudios.com.